Hello, everybody. I have here Patty Shackleford,
Right?
and she is one of the MNRI Core specialist.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm here to interview her and ask her, what is MNRI, and why have you chosen to become one of the MNRI Core specialists and put in so much of time and effort? And as a mother, I would like to know. As a parent, I would like to know. What is this MNRI method?
Great. Oh, great questions. First, what does MNRI stand for? It stands for Mosquitova Neurosensory Motor Reflex Integration. Big word. What does it mean? It means how can we get the brain and body to work together? What does it take to make sure that a person feels safe and is ready to step out into the world? Now, let me tell you my little story, and then I'll go into more detail. Back in 2006 was the first MNRI conference in the United States. It was in West Palm Beach. At that time, I was a ESE specialist in a pretty large county, and I wanted to bring it to my teachers in the county, and I'd been given that permission. So we'd had some training, but in the training, I would hear Svetlana talk about how quickly her CP kids would change, or how quickly her autistic kids developed language. Well, I will tell you, I went to that first conference in 2006 to prove Svetlana wrong. That was my first training as far as at a conference. I'd had several courses before then, but that was my first training. And by day 3, of course, Svetlana had proven herself absolutely correct. I saw kids change at a pace that I had never seen before. Why does that happen? This is what makes the Mosquitova method so unique, is that we follow the natural genetic pattern that every single child all over the world is born with. And with that pattern is that there is some sensory input, and in MNRI we use tactile or proprioceptive, auditory, visual stimulus. We take in that stimulus. It goes to the brain, and then the brain is to give a response. We look at that motor response. If I touch here, will that child all of a sudden come out and give me hand supporting? If I touch here, will that child go into a proper grasp? This is the stimulus. This is the motor response. So many of our kids with challenges, whether it happened in utero, whether it happened those first couple of years of development, or whether it happened at a later date, some stress or trauma occurred to either understanding the sensory input or the motor output. So what we do with the Mosquitova method is give that sensory input that's genetically built into the body, and we train the body to go into the proper motor response. Sometimes it takes more than one time. Sometimes it takes a little while to get it going. But today at the conference, I'm using hand supporting because today at the conference I saw so many of our participants who did not have hand supporting when they started my session, and by the end they felt it click in, and they really could tell that they were able, if I'm going to fall, I can save myself now. I don't have to hit my nose, I don't have to break my teeth or have a big bump on my head. So the simple part is that it trains the brain to go back to use what it's genetically made to do. And that's why I love the Mosquitova method, is because it uses what the body was naturally made to do. And if there's a problem with it, then we go back and show it exactly what the stimulus is and what that motor input should be. And it changes lives.
So, is there any age if my child is 18, 19 years old? Am I too late?
Absolutely not. At this conference, we have all ages. We have from a very young 2 and 3-year-olds to a 72-year-old person. So we have the whole range. Age doesn't always make the difference. It is best to start correcting as early as possible, but if a stress has happened at a different age, let's say a child was in a car wreck at age 9 and was typical before then, but after the car wreck, there were some, because of the stress of what happened to the body or the brain, something happened, then our job is to re-educate. We are in the business of using education to go back and find the missing key. Where do we need to go back to and start building back to the responses?
So you mean to say that Dr. Masgatava method, MNRI method, is helping to go and hit the brain directly and mature the brain?
What's the last part of
Maturity
Oh,
of the
maturation of the brain, exactly. Every time we move and every time that we have the correct response, we're building either rebuilding or building a new nerve net system between the brain and body.
So there are many children who are going through a lot of OT, PT, and speech, and in spite of having, and that also has a basis of sensory integration. And in spite of doing all that, the children are still non-verbal, some percentage. And when this non-verbal children get a mode of typing, they oftenly talk about their mind and their body, and they understand everything in the mind, but the body does not move.
Right.
So for children like this, do you think this method, or can you just explain what is the gap here?
The gap is the motor response. The motor response as far as being able to orally use what I'm using right now to give an answer to a question. So not every kid has that, but the possibility that there is so much information stored in the mind that the oral motor part just has had the trauma and those reflexes are not integrated. So a part that may be integrated for some kids is their ability to use typing skills to reflect what they know inside their head.
Wow, so it will be highly beneficial. So for the kids who are non-verbal, who do not understand that they have a body, they sometimes feel like I cannot feel my fingers. I don't understand my body in my mind. So this is
I have not been there. I have seen many children at this conference that have that exactly what you're explaining, that they need some assistance to type what they're thinking in their head. But I can't say that that's for every child, but for those that it works for and that they can communicate and they can tell what they know, and some of the levels of what they know is so high that it's often just takes my breath away, because listening to what they have to tell us that they know about their internal workings is just amazing.
So last question, how many reflexes do you guys work on, or how many reflexes are there? Can you just name few?
Well, right now we assess 30 reflexes. Not we, Dr. Masgatova assesses 30 reflexes. She can tell the parents exactly what quality that reflex is, from being pathological and not working to being normal or above normal. Most of the participants here have below average reflex development in some areas, and some specific reflexes that we work on are core tendon guard. We look at fear of paralysis. We work on Moro, foot tendon guard, the Babinski. There's just many. They're all over the body. The spinal Gallant and Perez on the back of the body. There's many. Trunk extension is very, very important. And at this conference, one of the things that we do is to look at the reflexes and then how they are put together in other programs. Like we have Archetype, which develops the very basic motor patterns that are needed to develop into the reflexes. We have Tactile, which takes in the information through the tactile system of the body as one of the senses that I was telling you about. There needs to be a sensory input to get the motor output. Well, if we don't have the proper understanding of taking in information through our tactile system, then that is a big area because our skin is our largest organ. We look at what I'm doing is a process called basal ganglia. We have actual repatterning of the reflexes, and I know I'm leaving something out. Oral, facial, and visual reflexes is one of the sessions. So when a child comes to conference, they get 6 hours of therapy every day, looking at, based on the assessment that Dr. Moscatova gives us. Within the classroom, we can work on many of those very same things, possibly in a different way, but it can be implemented within a school setting.
So in a conference, a child gets 6 hours of all different types of reflex integration work with 6 different therapies on and basal ganglia, neuro structure, archetype.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to thank you so much, Patty. This was wonderful, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.